The Audi A1 Sportback has firmly established itself as the ultimate super mini, the essence of democratic downsizing. This second generation version is smarter, more efficient and better equipped, and remains a seductive package for small car buyers. Luxury makers often cut corners to drive down the cost of their smaller models, and it shows. Not Audi. In any form you choose, this A1 Sportback would always feel reassuringly expensive.
With the original A1, this Ingolstadt maker pioneered the idea of a premium super mini. With this second generation version, they aim to perfect it. Prior to the first A1's launch in 2010, we'd had compact cars with upmarket badges before, the Mercedes A-Class of 1997 and Audi's own A2 of 2000, but they were family hatch-sized, quirky, niche products. The first A1, in contrast, was very much conventional in its design, as it had to be, given that it shared almost all its engineering with an only slightly humbler Volkswagen Polo. The Ingolstadt maker's cleverness with the car, though, lay in the way it was able to embellish such a set of fairly mundane ingredients with enough surface sheen to make the A1 recognisable as a fully fledged Audi, and acceptable to someone downsizing for one of the company's larger models, but wanting an equal level of class and comfort. Quite a lot's happened since 2010 though. In 2011, the original 3-door A1 was joined by a 5-door Sportback model, which was quickly preferred by over 80% of A1 buyers. So many, in fact, that Audi's rival BMW galvanised its Mini brand to compete, and in 2014 brought us a 5-door mini hatch model directly targeted at Audi's smallest offering. In developing the second generation A1 model we're going to test here, Audi wanted to better replicate some of the sportiness of that mini model, and at the same time inject into this car a level of comfort and technology never previously seen in the super mini segment, which is why this Mark II series A1, introduced in late 2018, standardises features like a fully digitalised instrument cluster, full LED headlights, and the kind of advanced infotainment and camera-driven safety tech you wouldn't expect to find on a super mini-sized car. The A1 only comes in this 5-door Sportback form this time round, and as before shares all its core engineering with other Volkswagen Group super minis, namely the Volkswagen Polo and the SEAT Ibiza. So, like those cars, this one features the Wolfsburg conglomerate's latest MQB A0 platform. Being stiffer, smarter and lighter, this should allow for more engaging driving dynamics, which was a key missing attribute with this car's predecessor. It all sounds quite promising. Let's see what the smallest expression of Vorsprung durch Technik can now deliver. The original Audi A1 was a very nice little thing, but it was very much a Volkswagen Polo in a smart suit, and dynamically was hardly any different from its Wolfsburg cousin. You sense right from the outset in driving this second generation A1 that it's a car with quite a bit more of its own personality, even though, as before, all the engineering is still of Polo parentage. The steering's probably the biggest change. It can still use a bit more feel, but it's much sharper than before and allows you to place the car exactly where you want it through the bends. Clearly, the development team were looking to go some way towards the drive dynamics of a rival Mini 5-door hatch. But not all the way. Audi buyers wouldn't want that Mini model's firm ride, notchy gearbox and questionable levels of refinement, and none of those things are served up here. Unfortunately, you don't quite get the Mini's endearingly cheeky, darty demeanour either, even in an S-Line model like this one with stiffer sport suspension. But this second generation A1 moves a step towards that without any noticeable dilution of the two dynamic attributes that attracted so many premium-minded small car buyers to its predecessor, namely exceptional refinement and exemplary ride quality by super mini standards. We'll come back to that, but first you're probably going to want to know what's new on the engine front. Not that much is the answer, though Audi's done its best to disguise the fact with a range of new model designations. Diesel power is notable by its absence, and instead there's a choice of efficient TFSI petrol units with outputs ranging from 95 to 200 PS, all enhanced by turbocharging and direct injection. All can be matched to smooth S-tronic dual-clutch auto transmission on request, which on most models is a 7-speed setup. Things kick off with the 25 TFSI derivative, which has a 1-litre 3-cylinder power plant offering 95 PS. But the vast majority of likely buyers will prefer the 30 TFSI model we're trying here, which uses a 116 PS version of the same engine. With this variant, rest to 62 miles an hour occupies 9.5 seconds en route to 126, or to put it another way, not quite as fast as the Mini Cooper 5-door hatch, but quicker than the Mini 1 model, which you sense was the kind of compromise that Audi was aiming at. If you want more, you'll need one of the 4-cylinder variants. There are two. We think the 35 TFSI model is well worth looking at, as are all the Volkswagen Group models that use that conglomerate's 1.5-litre 4-cylinder power plant with its cylinder-on-demand technology. Here, 45 mpg combined cycle economy is matched by both manual and automatic versions, with a smoothly rapid 7.7 rest to 62 mile/an hour sprint time en route to 137 miles an hour. We're less enthused by the top 40 TFSI S-Line competition hot hatch derivative. The thought of a 2-litre engine with 200 PS in a small car this size is certainly tempting. Indeed, we really liked the old 231 PS S1 model, which, by the way, Audi says it has no plans to replicate this time round. But the 40 TFSI is quite a lot pricier than its obvious segment shopping rocket rivals, yet no faster. 62 miles an hour from rest in this variant takes 6.5 seconds en route to 146 miles an hour. It comes only with an S-tronic paddle shift auto gearbox, which for some reason has only 6 speeds, and it's the only model in the range to get adaptive damping. Ah yes, damping. Well, we said we'd come back to that. Mainstream A1 Sportback models don't need fancy adjustable suspension systems because the standard setup's very good as it is, and the Ingolstadt engineers don't see why they should let you fiddle with it. As so often with Audis, less is more. The dynamic suspension layout you get on the cheapest models is preferable to this plush S-Line model's stiffer sport setup. But both ride packages are good enough to make comparable mini-motoring feel like sliding down a bumpy hill on a tin tray. Or at least they are, provided you don't make the mistake of ordering the largest 18-inch wheel rims. As referenced earlier, the differences in refinement between the two cars are quite pronounced. This A1 is so hushed at highway speeds that you could almost persuade yourself that you're in a large luxury segment model. Even this 30 TFSI model offers up only a distant 3-cylinder thrum. As a result, if you had a 3-hour drive in prospect and a choice of small cars for the trip, you'd lean towards this Audi every time. If you want to press on a bit, you'll want to make full use of the Audi Drive Select driving mode system that comes as standard across the range, provided you avoid entry-level SE trim. Here, as usual on Audi models, there are various selectable settings that alter throttle response, steering feel, and on S-tronic variants, gear shift timings too. You'll use efficiency for normal use, dynamic if you need a bit of extra urgency, and auto if you want the car to make all the decisions for you. Plus, there's an individual screen that allows you to program in your own parameters, though we can't imagine a typical A1 buyer ever using it. As you'd expect, this car is in its element in an urban environment, though we found that the manual gear shift action is rather long, and this 3-cylinder model's engine is slightly too eager to stall when you try and pull away at very low revs. Both things would lean us towards specifying the smooth shifting S-tronic auto box we've been trying here. Otherwise, there aren't many issues to report. The light controls, well-assisted steering, dinky dimensions, tight turning circle and decent all-round visibility make this little Audi simple to drive, simple to use and simple to park. The perfect shopping car indeed for someone who wants to leave something larger and more expensive tucked safely away at home in the garage. Audi's designers were treading a fine line here. The people who didn't buy the original version of this model and chose a 5-door Mini instead were looking for something more distinctive and fashionable. With this second generation A1, Ingolstadt wanted to better please these people while continuing to satisfy those who like this model precisely because of its Russian doll Audi brand authenticity. You might see the end result as a compromise or as a piece of design that's neat, confident and very classy, especially if you opt for this contrast coloured roof. But let's get away from the subjective stuff and focus on the facts, or one key fact anyway, which is that this is a notably larger car than its predecessor, being 56mm longer than before, which has pushed total length over the 4-metre mark for the first time. This time round, there's no 3-door body style because only 20% of buyers of the previous generation model wanted that. The 5-door Sportback format that remains is 6mm narrower and 30mm lower than before as part of Audi's efforts to make the shape more interesting. And that's one reason why the profile looks more purposeful. But there are plenty of others. We mentioned this optional contrast coloured roof, available in either Manhattan grey or, as here, in Mythos black. Now, Audi reckons it gives the impression that the roof is flatter and that the car is even lower slung. The different shading extends to the mirrors and A-pillars, but ends above this wide, flat-angled C-pillar, which has been styled to suggest forward motion, even when the car's standing still. That's also the reason why all the lines on the flanks, from the window edge to the lower sill, slope upwards towards the rear in a wedge shape. This time round, the waist level crease is lower and is joined at the rear by a higher swage line that emphasises the rear haunches. Lower down, this further crease separates arches housing wheel rims that can be anything between 15 and 18 inches in size. We've got 17-inch 5-spoke alloys here. At the front, it's a lot more distinctive this time round. Twin creases on each side of the bonnet flowing down into this wide, low-placed single-frame grille, above which are 3 flat bonnet slits which pay homage to the Sport Quattro, the brand's rally icon from 1984. Now, flanking these are the full LED headlights that come fitted to every variant, their illuminated signature supposedly echoing dynamic hydroplane wing shapes from the world of sailing. With more ordinary trim levels, these lower black plastic corner panels, Audi calls them implied air inlets, look rather pointless, but on an S-line trim variant like this one, they're divided in two with an outer section designed around tiny front fog lights. S-line trim gets you a more purposeful look at the rear too, courtesy of this larger rear roof spoiler. Now, on all A1s, the look is quite a bit more angular than it used to be, and a bit more mature too, courtesy of these 2-part LED lamp clusters which illuminate in a 3D pattern. Of course, as usual, what's more important is the stuff you can't see. In this case, the MQB A0 platform that this car shares not only with the Mark VI Volkswagen Polo, but also with the Mark V SEAT Ibiza model. This Audi also shares a factory with that SEAT, produced far away from Ingolstadt at the Iberian brand's Spanish factory in Martorell. Time to move inside. Enter through the long doors, which shut with a satisfying thunk, and you'll discover what you probably will have expected to find: the smartest cabin in the class. You don't, of course, get the double screens on the centre console that would feature in Audi's larger models, but the smart graphics from that swanky setup feature, and for the first time on any small car, there's a standard fitment of a digital instrument screen to replace conventional dials. Surrounding all of this is a dashboard that exudes solid quality and has some lovely touches, providing you specify your car with a bit of care. Things like the smart inlays, which in this case feature a sophisticated silver grey polygon structure finish, and options like the ratcheting centre armrest that you can set in the perfect position for your elbow, and the ambient lighting package that includes LED light elements in 30 selectable colours, incorporating this body-coloured detailing around the instrument binnacle and in the forward sections of the door cards. You can add various brightly shaded interior packs too that colour coordinate the areas around the gear stick, the vents around the instrument binnacle and the door pull panels. It's all very nice and a world away from the budget ambience of a volume brand Super Mini, but stops just short of being truly luxurious, even in this top spec model. There's nothing essentially wrong with the fixtures and fittings used, it's just that some of the surfaces, the tops of the door casings and the higher reaches of the centre console for instance, feel rather hard to the touch, which means that overall you don't really feel spoiled in the kind of way you might have been hoping for, given the price premium required for A1 ownership. Nor is there the kind of design exuberance that you'd find in, say, a rival Mini hatch or a DS3. Both of those rival cars seem smaller though. The second generation version of this Sportback model really does feel a size larger than before. Audi says there's 43mm more shoulder room, 28mm more elbow room and 5mm more headroom here in the front than there was in the previous design. As for those screens, well, we have to point out that whatever A1 you choose, you have to spend a little more to get the kind of more advanced setup we're trying here. The standard package limits you to an 8.8-inch MMI colour centre dash monitor and a non-configurable digital version of the instrument binnacle display. Your dealer will prevail upon you to spend extra on the optional technology pack that will give you this larger 10.1-inch central screen that includes 3D navigation and a virtual cockpit instrument binnacle display with a view button allowing two differently sized representations of the instrument dials. That gives you an extra sport option that allows information from the central MMI screen, including navigation mapping, to be shown across the binnacle's full display area. What you don't get with either infotainment package is the kind of lower centre console controller dial that makes life so much easier on rival Mini models. Nor, even more annoyingly, does this central screen have any physical controller knobs, which means that any command you want to give to it that can't be conveyed by voice requires the need to stab away at the touchscreen. In compensation, smartphone mirroring's much better provided for here. In a Mini, it costs extra and doesn't include Android Auto. Here, as standard across the range, you get both that setup and Apple CarPlay as part of the usual Audi smartphone interface. And with the technology pack fitted, you can go much further, courtesy of a 3-year subscription to a full suite of Audi Connect media connectivity features. Amongst other things, this package delivers online media streaming, a Google Points of Interest search function, a comprehensive Audi online traffic information system, plus news and weather feeds via high-speed 4G internet access via an embedded SIM card with no data charge. What else? Well, the driving position's better than in a Mini. You don't get that car's slightly offset pedal layout. The seat's good too and looks great with this optional Alcantara trimming and white stitching. The front chairs lack lumbar support with base level trim though, and some might want to be able to set them slightly lower. Rearward visibility is slightly compromised by the thick rear C-pillars and angled rear screen, which will be an issue on the entry-level trimmed variants that lack standard rear parking sensors. But of course you can specify a rear view camera and a park assist system to steer you into spaces if that's an issue. At least you get a conventional handbrake, so you're not fiddling around with a little switch every time you fire up and you move off. Next to it are twin cup holders and a coin tray, while in front of the gear stick there's a nicely lit stowage area, presumably meant for your phone, which is why twin USBs, a 12-volt port and an optional wireless charging mat are provided here. There are illuminated vanity mirrors in both sun visors and a ticket clip in the driver's one, but no overhead compartment for your sunglasses. The door bins are of a decent size, as is the glove box, though it seems a bit mean that you have to pay extra to be able to lock it. That facility comes as part of an optional storage pack that also gives you a stowage compartment under the front passenger seat and front seat storage bags. This central armrest, which has a tiny interior compartment, also costs extra. Time to take a look in the back. Now, there ought to be big improvements here too, given that this second generation Sportback model's extra 43mm of interior length and 94mm increase in wheelbase. That's enabled the fitment of rear doors that are much wider than those in a rival Mini 5-door hatch. And once you've used them to gain entry, you'll find enough space for a couple of 6-footers to sit behind comparably sized adults in the front, though knees will be brushing the seat backs in front. Heads will be brushing the roof lining too, despite the extra 7mm of headroom provided for this time round. OK, so a Volkswagen Polo would look after you slightly better, as you might expect it would, given that car's extra 24mm of overall length. But it's a big improvement on what you'd get in that competing Mini, which struggles to fit more than 2 folk in the rear. A centre seat occupant in this Audi will fare much better, but must still struggle with a transmission tunnel enlarged to the kind of level you'd think wouldn't really be required on a front-driven car. You're looked after with seat back pockets, reasonably sized door bins and overhead reading lights, but there's nothing else apart from these basics. You'd think that a supposedly really premium Super Mini might allow you to add in things like a rear USB port, a reclining backrest, or perhaps even an armrest with cup holders. Perhaps that's asking too much. And out back, well, it's mostly all good news. Boot space has risen markedly over what was provided by the previous generation model. The 335-litre capacity figure representing a 55-litre increase. It's still 20 litres less than you'd get in a Volkswagen Polo, but it's a lot better than the meagre 278-litre figure offered by a competing Mini 5-door hatch. It's a well-shaped space too, efficiently square and unimpeded by wheel arch intrusion. 4 body-coloured tie-down hooks feature, as do a couple of bag hooks, plus you get this little compartment in the left-hand corner for smaller items. Unfortunately, this rear backrest can't be positioned at a more upright angle, nor can it be specified with any kind of ski hatch. And the space-saver spare wheel that features here beneath the boot floor doesn't come as standard. You have to pay extra for this adjustable height boot floor, which is annoying, but you're going to want it, as this feature considerably increases boot flexibility. In its lowest position, you can take taller items, say plants from the garden centre, and moving it up higher creates a separate lower compartment, at the same time as reducing the tailgate loading lip. And when you push the 60-40 split backrest forward, smoothing out the large step in the loading area that would otherwise be created when the seats are down. Total capacity with everything flat is 1,090 litres. That's 170 litres more than the previous generation model could offer. A premium Super Mini carries a premium price. You'll be expecting that, but for some, the sum that Audi's asking here may still come as something of a shock. It's difficult to imagine how you could pay much less than £18,000 for even the lowest powered, most basic A1 Sportback. And if you go for a 4-cylinder version and tick more than a few boxes on the options list, it's perfectly possible to pay more than £30,000 without breaking too much of a sweat. Think in terms of this Super Mini costing you about the same as you'd pay for a larger volume branded Focus-sized family hatchback from the next class up, and you probably won't be too far out. As usual with Audi, there are 3 main trim options: base SE, mid-range Sport and this top S-Line version, with price premiums of around £1,500 between each level. And with each mainstream engine, you'll be offered the chance to pay just over £1,500 more to upgrade to 7-speed S-Tronic auto transmission if you want to. Throughout, the individual model designations feature the Ingolstadt brand's current and largely incomprehensible current numerical naming convention, which in all cases includes the letters TFSI, referencing the demise of diesel for this model line. Instead, things kick off with 2 versions of the 3-cylinder 1-litre unit we've been trying here. The 95 PS 25 TFSI and this 116 PS 30 TFSI variant, which is the version of this car that the majority of buyers are likely to choose. Avoid base SE trim and you'll be offered the alternative to move up to 4 cylinders and get the 150 PS 1.5 litre unit that features in the 35 TFSI variant. It's well worth thinking about because the premium's only around £1,000 and the larger engine cylinder deactivation system means that it's not much less efficient than the 1 litre power plant. At this model's launch, Audi offered 35 TFSI customers the additional option of 2 special style edition and contrast edition variants. If you want to go further, the summit of the A1 Sportback range lies with the 2 litre 40 TFSI variant, which puts out a lusty 200 PS and comes only with S-tronic transmission, in that case a 6-speed unit. The 40 TFSI comes only with a unique S-Line competition trim level and costs well over £25,000. On to the value proposition that this kind of pricing represents. There's no real point in comparing A1 pricing to the sticker figures you'll find with volume versions of mainstream Super Minis. This is intentionally targeted as a premium brand model. If you doubt that, take a look inside the cabin, then compare the quality and technology you'll find there to that of, say, an ordinary small Vauxhall, Ford or Citroën. A more natural competitor is Mini's 5-door hatch, a car which Audi sees as this A1's only direct rival. You may disagree. Anyway, in volume 138 PS Coupe guys, that Mini costs pretty much the same as a comparably specified 30 TFSI version of this A1. But with the Mini you get a smaller boot and much less in terms of refinement and ride quality. What else might a potential A1 Sportback customer be considering at the premium end of this segment? An upper spec Volkswagen Polo, perhaps? Well, as we've pointed out elsewhere in this film, the two cars share exactly the same engineering, though the Audi avoids the Volkswagen's smaller engines and its diesel units. If you're looking at an A1 30 TFSI variant like this one, you'll find that the equivalently engined Polo would save you around £1,500 and give you a bit more equipment, though bear in mind that the standard Audi spec includes features like full LED headlights and a digital instrument cluster, both of which would cost extra even on pricier Polos. The other VW Group model that shares its engineering with this Audi, the SEAT Ibiza, is more difficult to compare because mainstream A1 engines come only with the priciest Ibiza variants. Think in terms of a high-end Ibiza costing about the same as a low-spec A1 and you'll be in the right ballpark. The same is true of just about any other volume-branded Super Mini you can think of. As for the top 40 TFSI hot hatch model, well, you've really got to want one of those to pay over £25,000 for it, given that a comparably performing Mini Cooper S Steptronic would save you around £1,500, and a Volkswagen Polo GTI DSG with similar power would save you around £3,000. Bear in mind, though, that the bespoke S-Line competition spec of the A140 TFSI includes desirable equipment that would cost extra or wouldn't be available at all on those two rivals. So that's talked you through all the potential alternatives. Bottom line, well, there's nothing quite like this Audi. But if this car grabs your interest, you've probably already decided that for yourself. In which case, if you're serious about buying one, you're going to want to know just how generous the brand's being this time round with the standard spec. So let's see. If you've watched other sections of this film or been to a dealer, you might already know that for this second generation model range, Ingolstadt has standardised 2 key features: full LED headlights and tail lamps and a fully digital instrument cluster. Quite a large one too, 10.25 inches in size. Other standard features on the base SE spec models include 15-inch 5-arm design alloy wheels, auto headlamps and wipers, heat insulating glass, power adjustable heated mirrors and an anti-theft alarm. Inside you get a 3-spoke leather multifunction steering wheel, air conditioning, leather for the handbrake and gear knob, an auto-dimming rear view mirror and a speed limiter speed warning system that allows a maximum speed to be set so you can take steps to preserve your licence on highways or in congested urban areas festooned with traffic cameras. Plus, there's a comprehensive level of infotainment, courtesy of an 8.8-inch MMI Radio Plus centre dash screen incorporating MMI Touch. This setup includes voice control, a 6-speaker DAB audio system, a Bluetooth interface, and the Audi smartphone interface, which works with the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring systems. Most owners, though, will want more than that and will want to progress at least as far as sports trim. These mid-range models are identifiable by their 16-inch 10-spoke turbine alloy wheels, a silver-framed front grille and the matte black finishing applied to the front grille slats, the side air inlets, the side front spoiler lips and the rear diffuser. Inside, it'll all feel a bit more upmarket, thanks to the addition of front sports seats with lumbar support, a package of aluminium trimming around the front of the cabin, and grey inlays to replace the black ones you'd get in an SE. Plus, at sport level, you get cruise control and rear parking sensors, and the Audi Drive Select driving mode system that'll allow you to alter throttle response, steering feel, and on S-tronic auto models, gear shift timings to suit the way you want to drive. Here, though, as previously mentioned, we've opted for top S-line trim, which, as usual on any Audi, decks the car out with a slightly different, more dynamic look, which in this case means smarter bumpers, a bigger rear roof spoiler, body-coloured side sills, platinum grey trimming for the front spoiler and rear diffuser, bespoke front corner outlets and titanium black side air inlet frames. You'll also get 17-inch 5 twin-spoke design diamond-cut alloy wheels and sport suspension. Inside, the sports seats get part leatherette upholstery and embossed S-line badging, plus there's a special S-badge steering wheel, stainless steel pedals, an LED interior lighting pack, a black cloth headlining and silver grey dash inlays. The upgraded S-Line competition spec, available only to buyers of the 40 TFSI hot hatch variant, builds on this with bespoke grey matte 17-inch wheels, platinum grey finished door mirrors, adjustable damping and red brake calipers. On to options. Now, whatever A1 you choose, your Audi Centre salesperson will prevail upon you to consider the merits of the two key extra cost packs available with this car. So let's look at those. The one that might be most difficult to resist is the technology pack we've been trying here, which is what you'll need in order to bring the standard of cabin infotainment in this car up to a level that no rival Super Mini can match. With the technology pack, which costs an extra £1,650, you get a larger 10.1-inch centre dash screen that includes 3D navigation. And the TFT instrument binnacle screen we mentioned earlier progresses from digital cockpit to virtual cockpit status. That basically means you get a selectable second sport format for viewing the instrument layout, this allowing you to display information from the centre dash monitor, including sat-nav mapping, right across the screen. This pack also includes the Audi Phone Box package, which boosts your handset signal and includes a wireless charging mat to power it up. Another included part of the technology pack is a 3-year subscription to the Audi Connect media connectivity package, which works via an embedded SIM card that's permanently installed in the car and operates on a data flat rate, so you won't be stung with high roaming charges if you do a bit of intercontinental motoring. The setup comes with an LTE data transmission module that establishes high-speed 4G Internet 3 access and creates in your A1 a Wi-Fi hotspot supporting the new super-fast LTE Advanced Mobile Data Network. It also allows you to navigate with images from Google Earth, access a Google Points of Interest search function with voice control, and use a web radio setup with stations from around the world. Through the Connect system, you can access special in-car versions of your Facebook and Twitter pages, and it's possible to read, write and send messages and emails. The included online media streaming package gives access to millions of music tracks, and there's also a clever Audi online traffic information system that uses live traffic information to reroute you around jams. We mentioned there were two key options packs. The other is the Comfort and Sound pack, which gives you heated front seats, front and rear parking sensors, and an 11-speaker, 560-watt Bang & Olufsen 3D 12-channel sound system. It's another £1,000, but hey, go on, treat yourself. If you really can't stretch to that, and you've avoided bass trim, there's an optional Audi sound system which offers a more modest 8-speaker, 180-watt audio system upgrade. And you can get more help with parking, courtesy of a rear-view camera and a park assist system that'll automatically steer you into spaces. Aesthetics will be key to likely A1 buyers, so let's get to those. Now, bear in mind that unless you specify your Sportback in solid shell white, you'll be paying Audi more for your choice of paintwork. There's a wide range of ritzier metallic, solid and pearl effect colours, including some quite bright ones. Python yellow, anyone? We've got a more restrained turbo blue here. You'll need to have specified an extra cost colour to get the option of paying Audi a further £425 to have the contrast roof colour we mentioned earlier. Choose from either Manhattan Grey or, as in this case, Mythos Black, though not all of the main body colours are available with both roof shades. Wheel choice will be key too. With sport trim, there are alternative 16 or 17-inch rims, and with S-Line spec, there are alternative 17 and 18-inch rim choices. What else? Well, as usual with Audis, we'd prioritise the fitment of a space-saver spare wheel, since you only get a fiddly tyre repair kit as standard. And you're probably going to want the luggage compartment pack, which gives you an adjustable height boot floor and nets in the cargo area. There's also a storage pack, which gives you a lockable glove box, a storage compartment under the front passenger seat, and front seat storage bags. You can add in a front centre armrest too. If there's any cash left over after all that, you could look at niceties like power folding mirrors, heated front seats, and dual zone electronic climate control. Avoid bass trim, and you can also add in advanced keyless entry, a flat-bottomed sports steering wheel, and adaptive speed assist, which automatically keeps you a safe distance behind the vehicle in front at highway speeds. With an S-tronic gearbox, adaptive speed assist covers a speed range from 0 to 124 miles an hour, and in stop-and-go traffic can seamlessly brake you to a standstill, then automatically move the car away again. On the S-Line models, you can also pay extra for part Alcantara trimming for the sports seats and a multicoloured LED ambient light pack too. On to safety. Now, standard now on all A1s is a pre-sense front system that scans the road ahead as you drive for potential accident hazards. This setup also includes pedestrian and cyclist recognition that specifically searches for pedestrians and cyclists who might be about to move out in front of you and, if necessary, can initiate braking to avoid them. It even works in situations where visibility is poor, such as in fog. If a hazard's detected, you'll be warned. If you don't respond or aren't able to, automatic emergency braking will be initiated. At this point, if you've paid extra for the brand's pre-sense basic package, the seatbelts will be electronically tensioned, the windows closed, and the hazard warning lamps switched on, all to better prepare you for any impact. Standard camera-driven features this time round also include distance warning, which shows you if you're getting too close to the vehicle in front, and lane departure warning is also now standard, alerting you if you drift out of your lane, as is the Audi Connect Safety and Service eCall system, which automatically alerts the emergency services following a serious accident. All Sportbacks also get twin front, side and curtain airbags, ISOFIX child seat fastenings, a tyre pressure monitoring system and anti-whiplash front head restraints. On top of this, there are the usual electronic systems to try and ensure that none of these features will ever be needed. That means ESC stability control and an ASR traction control system. There's ABS braking, of course, and panic stops will be advertised to following motorists by automatically activating hazard warning lights. Plus, there's a hill hold assist feature, which was only optional on the previous generation model, which stops you from drifting backwards on uphill junctions. As an option, you can talk to your Audi centre about a blind spot monitoring system that alerts you if you're about to dangerously pull out when there's a vehicle in your blind spot. Though this second generation A1 Sportback's new MQB A0 platform is significantly lighter than the previous chassis, this car has still put on a bit of weight this time round. You're looking at an extra 45 kilos in the case of the 1 litre variant we're trying here, thanks to all the extra equipment that Audi's added into this Mark II model. It's still 20 kilos lighter than a rival Mini 5-door hatch though. The slight weight increase has probably affected the efficiency of this car slightly in comparison with its predecessor, but it's difficult to say by just how much because of the industry's change to the latest stricter WLTP, or World Harmonised Light Vehicle Test Procedure rating cycle. The stats we're going to quote here have been converted back to the most recent New European Driving Cycle, or NEDC2 spec, since that's what a lot of rival models are still using. If it hadn't been for that slight slip backwards, this A1's efficiency would have been a match for the best of its Super Mini rivals. To be fair, it's still pretty good, aided by a sleek 0.31 CD drag factor, the usual engine stop-start setup, and an effective brake energy regeneration system. If your Sportback has S-tronic automatic transmission, it'll also offer a coasting function at cruising speeds, which will disconnect the gearbox from the powertrain, leaving the engine to idle until you next need it. As you'd expect, there's a gear change recommendation feature in the instrument binnacle's central display screen. And if you've a variant with the Audi Drive Select driving mode system fitted, there's an efficiency option that focuses all of the car's systems on maximum frugality. Let's get to the figures, which, unsurprisingly, are almost exactly the same as those you'd get from a Volkswagen Polo and SEAT Ibiza Super Mini models that share this Audi's engineering. Those two cars persist with a diesel offering, but A1 ownership is all about petrol power this time round. Both versions of the 3-cylinder 1 litre unit, the 25 TFSI and the 30 TFSI, return very similar efficiency stats. In the case of the 30 TFSI, with SE trim, a manual gearbox and 15-inch wheels, you're looking at up to 58.9 mpg on the combined cycle and up to 108 grams per kilometre of CO2, which means a benefit-in-kind tax rating of 22%. Compare this to what you get from a rival Mini 5-door hatch in either Mini 1 or Mini Cooper form, up to 46.3 mpg on the combined cycle, up to 119 grams per kilometre of CO2, and a benefit-in-kind rating of 25%. That's quite a difference. We should point out that if you order your A1 30 TFSI with this test car's ritzier S-line trim and larger wheels, you'll hit the readings we just gave you by around 5%. Adding in the S-tronic auto gearbox has no impact on the CO2 figures, but hits the fuel result by about 10%. Further up the range, Audi's TFSI technology helps the perkier 4-cylinder petrol models to return much better running cost figures than you might expect. Take the 1.5 litre 35 TFSI unit for instance. Thanks to cylinder deactivation technology that sees 2 of its cylinders deactivated under light to medium throttle loads, a manual sport version of this variant on 16-inch wheels is able to return up to 46.3 mpg on the combined cycle and up to 119 grams per kilometre of CO2, which means a benefit-in-kind taxation figure of 24%. With S-tronic auto transmission, the 35 TFSI model's fuel figure falls fractionally, but the CO2 reading can improve to as much as 115 grams per kilometre. The 2-litre 40 TFSI hot hatch is equally efficient by the standards of its class. Even with S-tronic auto transmission fitted, in this case a 6-speed unit, this top variant manages up to 40.4 mpg and up to 136 grams per kilometre of CO2. What else? Well, there's an energy consumers section on the dash display that shows you which cabin elements are drawing upon running cost efficiency, and a servicing section too, telling you when the next garage visit's due. On the subject of regular maintenance, as usual with Audi models, there's a choice of either a fixed or a flexible servicing regime. The choice between the two depending on the extent of your likely annual mileage. The default setting is a variable regime with intervals of between 9,000 and 19,000 miles or 2 years. Overall maintenance costs can be kept down if you go for one of the prepaid servicing plans you'll be offered at initial purchase, which can cover you up to a maximum of 5 years and 90,000 miles. You may be interested to know that this car can even book its own service appointments via an Audi Connect safety and service system app. As well as providing emergency calling and online roadside assistance, this feature can, at the appropriate time, send a service request direct to your local dealer. Alternatively, you can sign up for Audi Service Request, which uses the onboard Wi-Fi to enable your car to communicate with the dealer. As your A1 nears the time when work will be needed, the diagnostics alert your nominated local Audi centre, who will then contact you to book in at a convenient time. Another neat service your dealer can offer you is the so-called Audi Cam system. Here, technicians carrying out workshop inspections on your Sportback can focus a handheld Audi Cam camera on specific problems, accompanying the image with a verbal diagnosis to create footage that can be sent to your computer or smartphone. That way, you'll know precisely what work you're authorising on your car. On to residuals, traditionally an Audi strong point, and so it proves again here. After 3 years and 60,000 miles, industry experts CAP reckon that an A1 Sportback 30 TFSI SE model will be worth 45% of its original asking price. In comparison, a rival Mini 1 5-door hatch classic would realise just 37% of its original value. Fit both cars out with auto transmission and the difference in values is even more pronounced, 44% to 35%. Audi also holds a significant advantage in terms of pence per mile running costs. Over 3 years and 60,000 miles, an A1 Sportback 30 TFSI SE model would cost 26.84 pence per mile, compared to 28.25 pence per mile for that rival Mini 1 5-door hatch classic. Fit both cars out with auto transmission and the Audi's advantage holds 28.74 pence per mile as opposed to 29.83 pence per mile. On to insurance groups. The base 25 TFSI is rated at Group 16E or 17E if you go for an S-Line version. For this 30 TFSI, you're looking at Group 19E for an SE version or Group 20E for Sport or S-Line trim. For the 4-cylinder 35 TFSI, it's Group 25E for Sport trim or Group 26E for S-Line spec. For the top 40 TFSI hot hatch variant, it's Group 31E. We'll finish by covering the warranty. All cars in this class get 3 years of cover, but whereas rival brand Mini doesn't limit your mileage in this period, Audi rather meanly restricts you to 60,000 miles. Optional extra cost packages can extend the cover to either 4 or 5 years. Audi knows just what kind of person is likely to buy this A1. Someone who wants an entry point into the world of German luxury motoring. A car with its own styling personality and a cabin appointed with the kind of care and sophistication you'd expect from a premium brand. Shared engineering doesn't matter as long as it's well disguised. Perceived quality absolutely does. The A1 Sportback delivers precisely to this brief, and if you've ever wondered just how much style and luxury is really possible in a really small car, then it's worth trying one. Still small, but usefully more versatile, this second generation version is a little urban jewel, trendy if you want it to be, restrained and low-key if you don't. It can come power-packed or frugally focused. It can break high-tech boundaries or be supplied in a form that won't break the bank. Inevitably, though, to experience much of what this car has to offer, you have to spend more than you might ever have expected to on a car of this size. So, is it worth it? Well, after all, on paper, you could get much of the same technology in a cheaper Volkswagen Polo, or indeed an even less expensive SEAT Ibiza. Fortunately though, for Audi, cars of this kind aren't solely bought on paper. No, you'll be considering this the most expensive Super Mini on the market because you've been just that little bit seduced by Audi's branding and image. Nothing wrong with that, of course. Casio tells the time just as well as a Rolex, but sometimes, let's be honest, we just want nice things. And by small car standards, this is a very nice thing, managing to deliver on its promises without resorting to the self-conscious funkiness of its closest rival, the Mini 5-door hatch. It can't quite entertain like a Mini, plus it's less interesting to look at and probably a touch less personalisable too. But on the other hand, the A1 is more refined, has a much better quality of ride, and is usefully larger inside, all of which will matter to likely buyers. But not quite as much as the fact that if you climb out of an A4 or an A6 into one of these, the feeling will be much the same. The essence of a large luxury car really has been distilled into a smaller, more accessible one, just as Audi promised.